Help DEA keep our communities safe and healthy by participating in National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day, Saturday, April 25th. Take action right in your own home by cleaning out your medicine cabinet of unneeded medications. Keep them safe, clean them out, take them back. Find a collection site near you at DEATakeback.com. Do your part to lower overdose deaths and prevent prescription drug misuse before it starts. That's DEATakeback.com.
DEA's National Prescription Drug Take-Back Day helps remove opioids and other medicines from your medicine cabinets, where they could be stolen or abused by family members or visitors, even children and teens. The next Take-Back Day event is Saturday, April 25th, offering free and anonymous disposal of unneeded medications at local drop-off locations, including pills, patches, and other forms of prescription drugs, as well as liquids like cough medicine. To find a Take-Back Day location near you, visit DEATakeback.com.
And away we go, episode 1307 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, April 21st, 2026. It is the day after 420, what I'm presuming was a most festive 420 for former Washington Redskins left tackle Trent Williams. We know his history with the thing for which 420 is known. B, Trent just got paid again. His agency on Monday morning announced the following in a post on X, quote, "At Trent W71 and Elite Loyalty Sports make NFL history again, securing a new 2-year, $50 million deal with the 49ers. The contract includes $37 million fully guaranteed and a $22 million signing bonus, making Trent the first non-QB in NFL history to surpass $400 million in contracts and $225 million in guarantees," end quote. Yes, a very happy 420 indeed for our friend Trent Williams, who's going into his age 38 season. The Skins took him with the number 4 overall pick in the 2010 NFL Draft out of the University of Oklahoma, and he likely is headed for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He has had a tremendous career, including this second act via his time with the San Francisco 49ers. He has been better for the Niners than he was for the Skins, and he was good for the Skins, but he has been better for the Niners. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. We are just 2 days away from the first round of the 2026 NFL Draft, in which Trent Williams' former team, now known as the Washington Commanders, has the number 7 overall pick. Next segment, an innovative guest with whom we'll discuss what to expect from Washington at 7, as I'll speak with Benjamin Robinson, the creator of Grinding the Mocks, a website that uses mock drafts, the wisdom of crowds, and data science to predict NFL drafts. Any mock draft on its own is only worth so much, but what about thousands of mock drafts put together? You perhaps are familiar with the idea of the wisdom of crowds. Well, Benjamin Robinson has arrived at a projection system for NFL drafts based not on what he or anyone else thinks about prospects as players, but on the idea of the collective we possessing a wisdom that can be quite telling. What are the mocks telling us about what Washington will do at 7? What are the mocks telling us about who will be available to Washington at 7? And what about the likelihood of Washington trading down from 7? All of that and more with Benjamin Robinson next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats, they blew a 3-2 6-inning lead by allowing 5 runs in the top of the 6th. This in a 9-4 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park on Monday evening. Also, I'll react to an update on Nats starting pitcher Josiah Gray. The O's, they on Monday night won a bonkers game, a 7-5 12-inning win at the Kansas City Royals in a game in which the O's overcame a 1-0 ninth-inning deficit. 10 of the game's 12 runs were scored over the 11th and 12th innings. Before we get to feedback, we on Monday morning had a joint season-ending press conference for Washington Capitals President of Hockey Operations Brian MacLellan and Washington Capitals Senior Vice President and General Manager Chris Patrick. My 4 takeaways from the presser. Number 1, nothing definitive on whether winger Alex Ovechkin is retiring. I do still think that he'll play for the Caps next season, but MacLellan and Patrick Patrick made it clear that they're giving Ovi time to decompress and make a formal decision. Patrick did say that ideally the team will know the deal with Ovi prior to the 2026 NHL entry draft, which will take place on June 26th and June 27th. Number two, Chris Patrick expressed an openness to signing head coach Spencer Carberry to a contract extension as he's entering the final season of his contract. Number three, it turns out that the lower body injury that defenseman Rasmus Sandin suffered in the Caps 6-3 win at the Pittsburgh Penguins on April 11th was a serious right knee injury, and he's expected to be out for the start of the 2026-2027 regular season. He was out for the Caps' final 2 games of this just concluded regular season. And number 4, Chris Patrick said nice things about the Caps' number 2 goaltender Charlie Lindgren, who had a really rough season. The Caps' number 1 goaltender Logan Thompson had a great season. Lindgren, though, struggled. Here was the exchange about Charlie Lindgren, and then you'll hear the next exchange, which was about Spencer Carberry's contract status, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange.
Looking at goaltending, obviously Thompson took the reins with more games to start. What did you make of Lindgren's season with a lot of playing the second half of back-to-backs and maybe his numbers not where he wanted them to be?
Yeah, he got probably about as hard of an assignment as you can get this year with his starts. And when I went through him, he gave us a lot of really good starts in really tough situations. I know the numbers probably on the stat sheet don't look great, but he went in there and battled. And if you took a couple of games out of his stats, he actually ends up with a pretty respectable number. So I appreciate what Charlie did. It's not an easy job to fill that role, and he did it really well, and is obviously a huge part of the room and a really good partner for Logan.
I believe Spencer's heading into the last year of his contract. How do you plan to approach a potential extension?
Yeah, I'll talk with his agent at the right time.
Is it important for you to have a coach under contract not going into his last year?
Only it's kind of the trend in the industry. So if you don't do it, then you have to talk about it the whole season. So if everything's good, then we'll probably just try to get it taken care of going into next season. Yeah.
All right, I like Spencer Carberry. I think that he has done a good job over his 3 seasons as Caps head coach. Overall regular season record of 134, 83, and 29. Overall postseason record of 5-9. Led the Caps to the Stanley Cup playoffs in each of his first 2 seasons. Won the Jack Adams Award for NHL Coach of the Year for the 2024-2025 regular season. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You could email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Larry Sabbath on Washington and the 2026 NFL Draft, writes Larry. I continue to be surprised by how often the discussion of the draft includes an emphasis on the athletic prowess of college players. Football is not a track meet. I care how a player performed over his college career. Raz has its place, but should not be a major factor for at least the first 3 rounds of the draft. How has the 2024 draft worked out for the Comskins? I do think it is worth considering Raz in the late rounds, or for players from schools that don't play major schedules. It is worth taking a chance, but really relying on high athletic scores for high picks is analogous to judging basketball players by their heights. Thank you for the email, Larry. So for those who don't know, RAS is RAS, which stands for Relative Athletic Score, a groundbreaking metric that was developed by Kent Lee Platty, who I have had on the podcast multiple times. On the podcast, have been talking about RAS for years. RAS grades a player's measurements and NFL scouting combine / pro day metrics on a 0 to 10 scale compared to his peer group. Washington, for each of its 2 NFL drafts with Adam Peters as general manager, has ranked number 1 in the NFL in average relative athletic score for players taken in the draft. I do not think that Peters is taking players solely based or even mainly based on their RAS scores. To Larry's point, that would be silly. I do think that Peters does very much value athleticism, likely more than most heads of football operations in the NFL. I do not think that it's a coincidence that Washington, for each of its 2 NFL drafts with Peters as GM, has ranked number 1 in the NFL in average RAS for players taken in the draft. And there's also this. Look at the players who Washington has signed in free agency agency this offseason. So many of them are Raz standouts. Edge defender Adafe Owe, linebacker Leo Chanel, safety Nick Cross. So those three guys are elite in Raz. So Peters absolutely has a penchant for players with high athleticism. What high athleticism suggests is high upside, but no doubt the athleticism should never supersede the tape, i.e. what you see in watching the player in actual games. Now, Adam Peters, during his joint pre-draft press conference with Assistant General Manager Lance Newmark this past Thursday afternoon, got asked about liking highly athletic players. So we, during the presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider Ben Standig of Last Man Standing on Substack and Peters.
Hey, Adam, you guys have drafted not just athletes, but you've drafted like higher end guys. I think basically every one of your picks so far has been, according to various public metrics, like the top of the list of athletes. When did you kind of come across for you that this is what I want to do when it comes to building rosters with these types of players?
Yeah, I mean, you always try to pick the best athletes, I think, so, I think, that's a big part of it for sure. I think everybody's trying to do that. You don't want to get a bunch of guys like me running around there. So, really that's part of it. But part of it's the fit. Part of it's the fit in the building, the fit with the scheme. Just how we talk about being Commanders, and a lot of those guys. Obviously the better players hopefully are better athletes, and they have some more upside, I think, too.
Yeah, there you go. More upside. Email from Robert Schaefer on what Washington will/should do with its number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, writes Robert. Al, long time no email. Apologies. Love, by the way, the video with you and Last Man Standing and the luscious locks, the voice, the locks. If you have the abs, begin applying for romance novel cover art. As normal, I digress. The draft. Forget everything said by the organization and look at the actions. The running back room has been beefed up. Linebacker and edge have been beefed up. While the receiver room seems meager, I suggest that the team immediately fires the receivers coach if it feels he cannot elevate these wideouts, along with the worst-kept secret that is Ayuk coming to the Burgundy and Spear. I like that, Burgundy and Spear. For me, that leaves cornerback and safety. The new DC is supposed to be a defensive back whisperer, so my thoughts, at number 7, it is Mansour Delane. This immediately becomes a 2-for-1 pick. Delane and Amos outside with Amik in the slot. Mikey becomes the new free safety. He thrives facing the quarterback and reading the quarterback's eyes. Mikey's read and react skills seem far superior than those of Quan, who in turn should get a shot at covering in the slot, where oddly enough, he had some success as a rookie. But my theorem, draft Mansour and you also get a new free safety in the deal with Sainristil. This is a 2-for-1. No need for me to quibble or provide later round guesswork. This is me reading the tea leaves of actions over words. Draft week, pumped, cheers, and all the best. Thank you for the email, Robert. I'm pumped too. And I am a fan of LSU cornerback Mansour Delane. On last Wednesday's show, episode 1303, spoke with NFL analyst Sam Monson, co-host of Check the Mic with Steve Palazzolo and Sam Monson. Sam is a big fan of Delane, has him as the CB1 in this draft. But Robert mentioned cornerback Mikey Sainristil and safety Quan Martin. Each guy showed promise in the 2024 season. Each guy was really bad in the 2025 season. What the new defensive coordinator, Durante Jones, does with and gets out of Sainristil and Martin in the 2026 season. Big-time wild card with the defense. And yes, the hair. I still have longish hair, as seen on my appearance with Ben Standig on a live Substack video last Wednesday morning for the Commanders' reveal of their new uniforms. But I probably do need to do something about the hair. My son has his first communion next month. I feel like that is the unofficial deadline for me to do something with the hair. If you are among the many people for whom buying eyeglasses has been complicated and costly, check out Warby Parker. Warby Parker, Warby Parker. Nothing comes close to the quality, price, selection, and customer service of Warby Parker, which has revolutionized buying eyeglasses. Once you buy from Warby Parker, you realize how much easier it has made the entire process. Warby Parker's virtual try-on is a total game changer. You literally can try on glasses from your phone before you buy them. You just point your camera and boom, you see tons of frames on your face in real time. Warby Parker's prescription glasses start at $95, so you can actually get quality and stylish frames at an affordable price. And Warby Parker doesn't just offer incredible prescription glasses. It has everything that you need for happier eyes, including contacts, online eye exams, and sunglasses. Warby Parker is covered by major eye insurance plans. And how about this with Warby Parker? For every pair of glasses that Warby Parker sells, it also gives a pair to someone in need. Warby Parker has distributed over 20 million pairs of glasses to people in need through its Buy a Pair, Give a Pair program. Warby Parker is offering a great deal to listeners of the Al Galdi podcast. Right now, buy one prescription pair and get 20% off any additional prescription pairs at warbyparker.com/Galdi. That's 20% off additional prescription pairs when you go to warbyparker.com/Galdi. warbyparker.com/Galdi. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. We've all been there. You're away for the weekend, the big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel, but it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVanish.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com. Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. Do we now have a good sense of who the Washington Commanders realistically most want to be available to them with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft if they do not trade down? NFL Draft analyst Todd McShay of The Ringer, he in an installment of the McShay Show podcast, an installment that came out on Sunday, said that Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles is the realistically available player who Washington most wants at 7. Here was McShay first talking about the New York Giants with their number 5 overall pick wanting Sonny Styles.
There are people who are of the strong belief that Sonny Styles is the guy. And I can tell you this for a fact. If you want Sonny Styles, you got to get him at 5 because he's not going 6 unless Dallas were maybe to trade up there if that's what their intention, and we'll get to all this later. But he's going 7. So I'll just tell you that right now.
To the Commanders, right?
If Sonny Styles is sitting there for the Washington Commanders, I'm told I'm pretty damn good authority. Dan Quinn, that's his guy, okay?
So how about that? And then shortly after that, we got this from Todd McShay.
Right. Sonny Styles is going 7 to Washington if he's on the board. And I actually believe that's if Jeremiah Love were on the board too. That's what I'm hearing. Strong.
Okay.
Strong. It's Sonny Styles to Washington at 7 if he's not a New York Giant, at 5, or if a team doesn't trade up to 6.
All right. Well, I on this podcast have focused our draft coverage on 8 guys. Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love, Ohio State receiver Carnell Tate, Ohio State safety Caleb Downs, Ohio State linebacker / edge defender Arvell Reese, Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles, University of Miami edge defender Ruben Bain Jr., Texas Tech edge defender David Bailey, and LSU cornerback Mansour Delane. I would think that the player who Washington picks at 7, if the Commanders stick and pick at 7, will come from that group of 8, but who knows? For increased clarity on what we're looking at here, I'm very pleased to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast for a 3rd consecutive year an innovative thinker regarding NFL drafts, Benjamin Robinson. He is the creator of Grinding the Mocks, which uses mock drafts, the wisdom of crowds, and data science to predict NFL drafts. Benjamin has worked with NFL teams, agents, and analytics companies, and his work has been featured by a variety of outlets. The site is grindingthemocks.com. He also has a Substack, which is grindingthemocks.substack.com. You can follow Benjamin on X at benj_Robinson, and you can follow Grinding the Mocks on X at grindingmocks. Hey, Benjamin, how are you?
Oh, perfect. It's a beautiful day, and it's draft week.
Yes, it is. It finally has arrived. Let's do the bottom line question, and then we'll work our way from there. Right now, off all that you're looking at, who is most likely to be taken by Washington if it stays at 7?
Most likely, and what my data says are two different things. So right now on my site, if you go over to our team tables and look at my weighted mock draft shares, what that's doing is it's looking at the mock drafts for Washington, and then we're upweighting mock drafts by better experts and also by date. And so right now, there's not really a strong consensus around which player Washington is going to be is most mocked to. Right now, it happens to be Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love, but that's definitely not who I think will be available at 7 when the Commanders are on the clock. Once again, edge rusher is their most mocked position, and I don't even think they're going to be targeting an edge rusher with their first pick in the draft this year. So, when I think about who's most likely to be there, I think it's either going to be the safety Caleb Downs from Ohio State or the edge rusher Ruben Bain from Miami. And I think in that scenario, Caleb Downs will be the pick.
Why is it that your weighted mock draft shares have Jeremiah Love as most likely to be taken by Washington at 7 when the momentum from mock seems to be Love being taken before 7?
Yeah, I think some of it is some steam from when he was being mocked to the Commanders a lot earlier in the cycle. We're just now getting into like the meatiest and the most heavily weighted mock drafts in my data. But I think there also is this kind of understanding of, he really has 2 spots in the top 10. Or maybe 3, right? We'll say 3. We'll say Arizona, Tennessee, and New York. And so the question becomes, are those actually the needs that those teams actually have? And the answer is kind of no. In Arizona, they have James Conner still, and they brought in Tyler Algier in free agency. The Titans have many more needs than a running back, and I'd say most teams have a lot more needs than drafting a running back. And the Giants, had some success with Cam Skattebo and Tyrone Tracy, and so it's unclear whether they really need a running back. Would that put New York over the top in the NFC East? I think the answer to a lot of those questions is no, but Jeremiah Love is still one of the top-rated players in this class. So I think that there is some amount of wishful thinking there of like, well, if it does come to here, that seems like they would run that card in. But it just really, really tight knit group of players. When I look at my weighted mock draft shares, Jeremiah Love at 18%, Caleb Downs at 14%, Ruben Bain at 14%, Sonny Styles at 13%, Carnell Tate at 12%. There's just really not a consensus in any way, shape, or form that this player is going to be the guy for Washington.
For those who don't know, your weighted mock draft shares are what exactly?
So basically what I do is I take, not every mock draft is created equal. So certain mock drafts are published closer to the draft and have stronger information about what's actually going to happen. And then, for example, when I post a mock draft, you want to weight down my mock draft because it's not been historically accurate. But when Dane Brugler's of the world, when Daniel Jeremiah's of the world start to publish theirs, we want to make sure that we weight theirs higher when we put them into my machine learning formula. So the weighted mock drafts are basically saying instead of my mock draft being worth one mock draft, which would be the same as if I was Daniel Jeremiah, if we were counting them all the same, let's make sure we privilege mock drafts that are created closer to the draft and from stronger experts. So the weighted mock draft share is just the percentage out of the total universe of mock drafts that we can attribute to those players.
The New York Giants in the 2026 NFL Draft now have both the number 5 overall pick and the number 10 overall pick. This off the Giants on Sunday morning trading interior defensive lineman Dexter Lawrence to the Cincinnati Bengals for that number 10 overall pick. Does the Giants now having 2 top 10 picks change anything regarding who will be available to Washington at 7?
I don't think it changes too much. When the Bengals were going to be picking at 10, I think that they were considering some of the same guys that the Giants would be considering there. I think the Bengals traded out of that pick because they didn't like the risk of coming to that pick and having the only prospect that they'd be really strongly interested in be Tennessee cornerback Jermod McCoy. I'm originally from Cincinnati, so I follow the Bengals pretty closely. This was a very, very big thing. They'd never really do this type of stuff in terms of trading for big time established players and trading a top 10 overall pick at that. I do still think that what will happen in these earlier picks, it's not as set in stone that Washington wants this position. And then, looking back at Adam Peters' draft history in the first round, it was really apparent that they were going to draft a quarterback his first year. Last year, there was a lot of noise around edge rusher, and they didn't do that. So I think that there's some amount of secrecy. Nobody really knows what Adam Peters wants to do. And so to me, I think they'll take from those second crop of players. I don't think they're going to be moving up in this draft at all. But whatever the top rated player on their board coming in, that's just going to be who they take. I think that's the kind of draft position that they're in.
In your analysis of NFL drafts, what have you found regarding whether teams draft more best player available or draft more for need?
I think in the first few rounds, for the most part, they draft best players available. Obviously, you're picking to the players, but you're also building a team. And so you shouldn't always just draft the best player available. If those positions, for example, are positions that are undervalued in terms of the market, like for example, that's this running back position, the safety position, the linebacker position to a certain extent, like that'll play into effect. I do think most teams are run by scouts and they want to pick the best player that they like, and so they're always going to tell you that they pick the best player available. I think it varies a little bit when you get later into the first round and the level of talent amongst players might be similar, then maybe you take need into account. But I don't think they always pick the best player available. But at the top of the draft, you're mostly going to see teams taking those top players regardless of position. There have been a lot of running backs that go in the top 10 who are top rated players. It doesn't necessarily impact those top rated players. It might impact players further down the line where there's less differentiation or other needs come up.
A perception is that the top 10 for the 2026 NFL Draft is especially unpredictable. Is that perception correct?
I don't think so, personally. Whenever I hear this draft is so unpredictable, it ends up being a lot more predictable than people think. I think some of it has to do with the lack of quarterback landmines this year. I think back to prior years where there were only one or two quarterbacks. There was always a discussion about, is there going to be a third? This year, Fernando Mendoza is the clear-cut number 1 overall pick. Ty Simpson, the buzz around him being a first-round pick has almost primarily been through trade. And when I see that, it makes it feel less likely to me that it's just going to happen that way. There really is some over-indexing him to Arizona via a trade. I think there is a possibility that Arizona does trade out of number 3, but trading back into the first round for a quarterback, given where they are in their team building journey, feels less likely to me. So to me, when I see fewer quarterbacks that could potentially be spots where the draft really changes in a meaningful way, it feels to me like this kind of draft will deviate closer to consensus than people think. When I think back to some of those drafts, those were drafts where I had 30 of the top 32 in my top 32. I'm not sure. I'm not saying that's going to happen this time. I'm not that confident, but I think it'll be much more closer to consensus than people think.
Another perception with this draft is that it is a bad draft. Is that perception correct?
I don't think so. It's always about the distribution of talent. So, there have been drafts where we think that the draft has a lot of talent, but it's very top heavy. This year, it's more distributed throughout the draft. There's the impact of the name, image, and likeness, where there is a change in like the age composition of the draft as well. Not as much at the top, but so I'd say that this class is distributed a bit differently than most class, but I think there's a fair amount of depth in a lot of positions, and so you just need kind of rethink your priors about what does a quality draft mean. Does a quality draft mean that there's just a lot of superstars, or does it mean that there's lots of contributors? This draft might have more contributors than superstars.
Much more with Benjamin Robinson in moments, but if you would like to grow your business or practice, consider advertising on this podcast. Podcast advertising works and is very affordable. Put the power of the pod to work for you. Get your message out there to thousands of successful people in the Washington, D.C. area. Email us to see what we could do for you. We'd love to have you on board. The email address is thealgaldipodcast@yahoo.com. We're talking about the 2026 NFL Draft as it relates to the Washington Commanders as we speak with Benjamin Robinson, creator of Grinding the Mocks. What I most want from Washington at 7 is for the Commanders to trade down. How likely is them doing that?
I don't think it's going to happen, but I think they should. The team needs to get younger in a meaningful way, and the draft is the best way to do that. And so, to me, I don't know how many suitors there will be, but if they got an offer that was even a little bit below what the market value in the trade was, I would do it anyway. I think it's just worth it to have more shots at growing this team. They showed what their ceiling is when Jaden Daniels is healthy, and I think they need to push more towards getting back to that ceiling, and some of that is building up this floor. So the defense is still an issue. I know they addressed a lot in free agency, but I think you could never get enough pass rushers, never get enough of those pieces on the defensive line to help this team get back to where it was.
You said that you don't know how many suitors there will be for Washington's number 7 overall pick in terms of a trade down. I don't think that you're wrong, but the lack of suitors is based on what, in your opinion?
I think that there are some teams that will be interested in some of those players in the top 10, but when you get outside of it, I think there'll just be less interest. I think there's going to be more trades that happen in the later part of the first round and then in the top part.
Is there any player who isn't necessarily coming up as being taken by Washington at 7, but who you could see falling to Washington at 7?
I think the one guy that you could say might fall would be Carnell Tate, the wide receiver from Ohio State. I think the earliest he could go would be Tennessee at 4. I feels like the Giants are leaning defensive player, either Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs. But I think the position where the Commanders are, it just kind of feels like falling. The player that I would think would be like most surprising to me to see him fall there would be David Bailey, the pass rusher from Texas Tech. But that would be the biggest surprise to me, would be seeing him available there. But, Carnell Tate is the 6th ranked player in my data. Having him available at 7 is not totally unsurprising. But given where David Bailey is, I think that would be the biggest surprise. And if I were the Commanders, I would just rush that pick to the podium right away.
The big 4 out of Ohio State, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, and Carnell Tate. How high do they all end up going?
In terms of their ceilings, I think Arvell Reese's ceiling is at pick 2. I think that's eventually where he probably will end up. I see Sonny Styles as a New York Giant. I see Carnell Tate as a Cleveland Brown. I see Caleb Downs as a Washington Commander. So I think that's kind of like the optimal scenario. Personally, I think Tate would look great in the Titans. And I think Styles would look, pretty good with the Giants. And I think all those players would end up in really good spots if that was how it worked out.
You started grinding the mocks in 2019. To what extent has your process changed since then?
So in 2019, I would say my process is basically pretty similar. We just have more history to go back on in terms of figuring out whose voices we need to upweight and which ones we need to downweight. I'd say the biggest innovation since then has been including big board data. So not just mock drafts, but also some amount of big boards. So grinding the mocks is about like 90% weighting mock drafts and then 10% big boards, just so that you get a little more signal from the player rankings, to make sure that we're lifting players up and not just thinking about the mock draft as the only thing that matters. So I think most of what I've done is just over time refined that process. But a lot of it in terms of what makes me better than everybody else out there is just, I think, the data piece. Recently, Arif Hassan, who publishes this consensus big board every year, posted an article looking at which places online are most accurate at predicting where players will be drafted and NFL success. And Grinding the Mocks is the number one public resource for predicting draft order, and then number two behind his consensus big board for predicting NFL success. So to me, that's always a good sign. We're always trying to get better.
Has mock drafting gotten better since 2019?
I think it's a good question. It's something that I haven't looked into, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting question of whether mock drafts have gotten better or whether the league is following the consensus more. So, data and analytics play a bigger role than it ever has. Pretty much every team has a mock draft simulation group, where their analytics group is creating these internal tools based on public mock drafts as well as their internal grades. So potentially they're getting more bites at the apple, and seeing more about like realistic scenarios that will occur based on the data, and reacting accordingly. So I don't know if mock drafts are getting more accurate or if the league is hewing closer to consensus, but it's something that I've thought about and I want to write about more in the offseason on my blog.
Do you have any sense whether NFL teams are better at the NFL draft now as compared to yesteryear, or is that too difficult of a question to answer?
I think it's probably too difficult to answer. There's a lot of change every year in terms of who's making the picks. If we had, GMs that had these massive contracts where their time horizon was really long, can be connected with their owner, you might see something more like the optimal draft, but you end up a lot with what we call in social science the principal agent problem, where the job of the general manager is not necessarily to win the Super Bowl, it's to keep his job. And so that ends up making kind of short-term thinking usually privileged over long-run success, because most of them never get the opportunity to see long-run success, given how the short term is privileged over the long term.
Is there any change with the NFL draft that you'd like to see?
I think the main thing is around the draft, how the draft order is determined. So there's a decent amount of just as a fan, when I'm watching teams, who have only incentive to lose at the end of the season, I would love to see that change. Basically you'll see teams just, the players aren't trying to lose, but they're not being set up to succeed. I'd love to see some way of rewarding teams that have underperformed, but still are trying to win at the end of the season so that you get a better quality product on the field. That's the main thing that I would change about the draft. Give teams a better incentive to win at the end of the season so that we're not just picking the teams that are the most injured or the worst constructed, and the kind of setting up that perverse incentive. So many times at the end of the season, the Giants lose a game or the Jets lose a game that they quote unquote shouldn't have, and it's impacted their draft slot. And I'd love to see that change.
So what you're talking about, of course, is an anti-tanking rule, not unlike what the NBA is wrestling with. Have you thought about what specifically the NFL could do to discourage tanking?
I haven't, but my friend Anthony Reinhardt, who runs Stat Butler, so if you like any of that stuff, statbutler.com, he wrote a piece at the end of last year about his plan to defeat tanking. And basically, I think there are ways to do that. So it's not necessarily that we don't have ideas. I think it's just never discussed. I think people would be... It would take, I think, a cultural change. I don't think the NFL sees anything wrong with the draft right now. And tanking is not necessarily endemic. I don't think you're not seeing that same type of tanking that you were seeing like with the Browns or something like that, where it seems like they were really doing it on purpose. But I just would love to see like a more just system when it comes to giving out these draft picks. Don't just give the worst team these draft picks. Give the team that tried the hardest and even won, in spite of anything that would tell you that losing was the right move.
Benjamin Robinson, creator of Grinding the Mocks. Benjamin, thank you. Continued success.
Appreciate it, Al. Thank you so much.
All right. Whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, cateringbyuptown.com. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event. And Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you could check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Washington Nationals on Monday evening provided an update on starting pitcher Josiah Gray. They announced that he, quote, will undergo additional testing, end quote, and is, quote, not throwing at this time, end quote. That does not sound good. Gray has been on the 60-day injured list since March 23rd, retroactive to March 22nd. This due to a right flexor strain. And that is off him on July 24th, 2024, having undergone both Tommy John surgery and an internal brace procedure on his right UCL. He has had 2 consecutive lost seasons, may well be in the midst of a 3rd consecutive lost season. All the best to Gray, but again, that announcement from the Nats did not sound good. In the meantime, the Nats remain in the midst of a brutal stretch of 17 consecutive days with no scheduled off days. The team's next scheduled off day is this coming Monday, April 27th. And the Nats on Monday evening lost to what is easily the best team in their division, the National League East. A 9-4 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the Nats blew a 3-2 6-inning lead by allowing 5 runs in the top of the 6th. This also was a game in which the Nats' infield defense was rather sloppy. 2 fielding errors, multiple other plays that could have been made but weren't, and a pass ball. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 10-13, 2-8 at home versus 8-5 on the road. The Braves in this regular season now are National League East best 16-7 with an MLB best run differential of plus 62. The Nats run differential, in case you're curious, is minus 18. The Nats offense in this 9-4 loss to the Braves at Nationals Park on Monday evening was not good. 4 runs, that's not too bad, but just 3 hits, which were a home run and 2 singles, just 2 walks, just 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position, and things got a bit testy. C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, went 0 for 2 with a walk and a hit by pitch. He also had a stolen base. He did commit a fielding error, but Abrams in the Nats 1-run 6th drew a 1-out first pitch hit by pitch from Braves starting pitcher Bryce Elder, as Nats starting pitcher Jake Irvin earlier in the game had issued 2 hit by pitches to Braves right fielder Ronald Acuna Jr., knocking him out of the game. Each team was issued a warning. Now, nothing came of Abrams being hit by the pitch. There was no incident. And I commend Abrams. He took what pretty clearly was an intentional hit by pitch in stride. Didn't make a big scene, and he ended up scoring. Abrams stole second base and scored on a 2-out throwing error by third baseman Austin Riley to cut the Nats deficit to 7-4. Good for C.J. Abrams. That is how you make a team pay for an intentional hit by pitch. But I will also say this. I'm not mad at Bryce Elder for hitting Abrams with that pitch. Elder was standing up for his teammate Ronald Acuna Jr., who was hit by 2 pitches by Jake Irvin. Not intentionally, but, that doesn't really matter. Acuna is a key player for the Braves. He got knocked out of the game, so I can't fault Elder for standing up for his teammate, and Elder hit Abrams with a pitch in a proper way. Didn't throw at Abrams' head or anything like that. Threw at his hip/backside, and Abrams was just fine. And as mentioned, ended up scoring. But, I think about all of this. The Nats in this regular season have issued 14 hit by pitches over 23 games. The Nats for the 2025 regular season issued an MLB worst 89 hit by pitches. The Nats are lucky that they have not been in some massive brawl with all of these hit by pitches that the team has issued over these last 2 seasons. Also with the Nats offense on Monday evening, Dalen Lyle homered. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 5 batter, went 1 for 3 with a solo homer and a walk. Lyle in the Nats 1-run 4th had a leadoff first pitch homer homer to right field for a 3-2 Nats lead. The ball was caught by Nats relief pitcher Sino Perez in the Nats bullpen and in his hat. And as you may recall, this was something that Perez did over his 4 seasons with the Baltimore Orioles, 2022 through 2025. And now he's doing this with the Nats. That is a skill, man, catching a home run with a hat. And Jacob Young, he is the Nats starting center fielder and number 6 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 2-run single. Young in the Nats 2-run first had a 2-out opposite field 2-run single to right field for a 2-0 Nats lead. The Nats starting pitcher for this 9-4 loss to the Braves at Nationals Park on Monday evening was Jake Irvin. He officially allowed 4 runs, 3 earned in 5 innings. He gave up 3 hits, which were a home run and 2 singles. He issued 2 hit-by-pitches. He did have 4 strikeouts versus no walks. He threw 68 pitches, 43 strikes versus 25 balls. Irvin began his outing with 3 perfect innings, but he in the top of the 4th allowed 2 runs as he gave up a 1-out 2-run homer by Matt Olson to center field to tie the game at 2. The homer winner projected 419 feet per Statcast, and Irvin and the Braves' 5-run 6th was charged with 2 runs, though only 1 was earned due to a fielding error by second baseman Nasim Nunez. Nats manager Blake Butera pulling Irvin at just 68 pitches was interesting, although Irvin may well have been fading. And look, he isn't exactly someone who has earned the trust to stay in games. Jake Irvin in the 2025 regular season over 33 games, all starts, had an ERA of 5.70, which was the worst ERA among all qualified pitchers in MLB. Andy in the 2025 regular season gave up an MLB worst 38 home runs and gave up an MLB worst 114 earned runs. This was Blake Butera during his postgame press conference on Monday night on Jake Irvin, and then you'll hear multiple follow-up exchanges.
Yeah, I thought Jake threw the ball extremely well. Outside of the 2-run homer to Olson. Felt good about him going back out there for the 6th. We made a mistake on defense, not catching that ground ball, and then Jake hits Acuna, and then just with the tying run on second there, and Baldwin and Olson staring us in the face. 3rd time through the order, where they got him his last time. Just thought that was the right time to use PJ there with the 2 lefties back to back. Felt like that was a big spot in the game. It just didn't work out.
How tough of a call is that in the moment, or is that something you felt kind of confident in going?
No, I mean, going into the games, we always talk about the right pockets for certain relievers we have. This lineup is really tough to navigate. Obviously, that felt like the best spot where PJ matched up against these guys, and obviously didn't want those first 2 guys to get on to start that inning. Jake had been throwing the ball really well, like I mentioned, just with the tying run on second there in the 6th. Those guys coming up again for a 3rd time, just thought PJ was the right move.
So is that a case where he probably comes out no matter how the first 2 batters of the inning go?
Yeah, with the tying run there, yeah. If we had a little bit more cushion, maybe differently. Not Jake's fault by any means. If we had, more runs and a bigger gap, I think it's a little bit different.
For you, how do you have to balance that particular situation in this game versus you've talked about the schedule and the games that you're in and knowing how much the bullpen has worked? How do you balance those 2 things in those kind of moments?
Yeah, I think yesterday was huge for us with, Miles and Alvarez covering the amount of innings they did. And then today we knew we had Brad Lord for length. So Jake getting us into the 6th inning, we felt like that was already a pretty nice win right there. So we felt like we had some room to use some bullpen guys. And, just didn't go our way tonight.
No, it did not. Jake Irvin now for this regular season. 5 games, all starts, ERA of exactly 6, whip of 1.29. The Nats for this regular season now have a starting pitching ERA of 5.98. The Nats relief pitching in this 9-4 loss to the Braves at Nationals Park on Monday evening was not good. 3 Nats relievers officially combined to allow 5 runs in 4 innings. PJ Poulin officially allowed 2 runs in a third of an inning in what ended up being a 5-run 6 for the Braves. Faced 3 batters batters and got one out, came into the game in the top of the sixth with runners on first and second, no outs, and the Nats holding a 3-2 lead. He, on his very first pitch, issued what initially was ruled a wild pitch, but then was changed to a pass ball, as it was a pitch that the catcher, Drew Millis, could have caught. The runners advanced to second and third. Poulin, on his second pitch, gave up an opposite field two-run double by Drake Baldwin to left field for a 4-3 Braves lead, and Poulin, two batters later, issued a one-out walk of Austin Riley, despite having had him down in the count at 1.12. Brad Lord officially allowed one run in 2 2/3 innings. He came into the game in the top of the sixth with runners at the corners, one out, and the Nats down 4-3. And he, to the first batter he faced, gave up a one-out opposite field RBI single by Ozzie Albies to left field for a 5-3 Braves lead. Lord, to the second batter he faced, gave up a one-out RBI single by Michael Harris II up the middle for a 6-3 Braves lead. Lord, to the third batter he faced, induced a grounder by former Nats first baseman Dominic Smith for a 1-6 fielder's choice out at second, but Lord made an errant throw to shortstop C.J. Abrams at second base, and the Nats did not turn a 1-6-3 double play, allowing another run to score for a 7-3 Braves lead. Then came Abrams committing a fielding error on a two-out grounder by Jorge Mateo, the former Orioles infielder/outfielder. Lord did then toss a perfect top of the seventh and a perfect top of the eighth, and Julian Fernandez in the top of the ninth allowed two runs on two singles, two walks, a wild pitch, and a sac fly. He allowed a run on a one-out first pitch bunt RBI single by Eli White, who actually was tagged out by first baseman Luis Garcia Jr., but the call on the field was that White was safe, and the Nats failed to challenge the play. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Fernandez from AAA Rochester. The Nats for this regular season now have a relief pitching ERA of 5.57. Game 2 for the Nats against the Braves at Nationals Park Tuesday evening at 6:45. The Nats list Foster Griffin as their probable starting pitcher. Well, we as Washington, D.C. sports fans, including as Nats fans, know a lot about rebuilds. Spring is a great time of year to reset your wardrobe, but unlike the Nats and Washington Wizards rebuilds, a resetting of your wardrobe doesn't take years. Thanks to Quince. Quince is great. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. Quince makes high-quality, everyday essentials using premium materials like 100% European linen and an insanely soft flow-knit activewear fabric. Quince's men's linen pants and shirts are lightweight, breathable, and comfortable, basically the perfect layer for spring. The pants strike the right balance between laid-back and refined, so you look put together without trying too hard. And maybe the best aspect of Quince is that its prices are 50 to 60% less than those for similar brands. How? Well, Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. Refresh your wardrobe with Quince. Go to quince.com/Goldie for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Goldie. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Goldie. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ETHOS.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
A tremendous win for the Baltimore Orioles on Monday night, a 7-5 12-inning win at the Kansas City Royals in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the O's overcame a 1-0 ninth-inning deficit. Each team scored a run in the 11th inning, and the O's won the 12th inning 5-3. The game took 3 hours and 50 minutes, but the O's won. They in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 11-12. There was so much to this game. The O's scored just one run over the first 10 innings, but then scored 6 runs over the final 2 innings. The O's won 7-5 in 12 innings, despite being out-hit by the Royals 14-6. Also, the O's won despite striking out 14 times, but the O's had a home run and a double to go with 4 singles, worked 8 walks, and went 4 for 13 with runners in scoring position. Samuel Basallo, he is the Orioles starting catcher and number 5 batter, went 2 for 3 with 2 RBI singles and 2 walks. Basallo in the Orioles' 5-run 12th had a leadoff opposite field RBI single to left field for a 3-2 Orioles lead. And I mentioned the O's homering. Leody Taveras, he is the Orioles starting center fielder and number 8 batter, went 1 for 5 with a grand slam. Taveras in the Orioles' 5-run 12th had a grand slam to center field for a 7-2 Orioles lead. The homer went a projected 419 feet per Statcast. How about Leody Taveras? He, for this regular season, 54 plate appearances, OPS of 998. He has been so good. The Orioles starting pitcher in this 7-5 12-inning win at the Royals on Monday night was Kyle Bradish. He had an odd outing, but he overall was good. 1 run in 5 1/3 innings with 7 strikeouts. That's good. Now, he did allow 10 hits, which were a home run and 9 singles, and he did issue 3 walks and a wild pitch, and he did throw a lot of pitches and a lot of balls. Over his 5 1/3 innings threw 104 pitches, 63 strikes, 41 balls, but this was a step in the right direction for Bradish, who had been struggling. Kyle Bradish now in this regular season, 5 games, all starts, ERA of 3.96, whip of 1.76. That's really bad, but strikeouts per 9 innings of 10.08. That's good. The Orioles relief pitching in this 7-5 12-inning win at the Royals on Monday night. Overall was good. 6 Orioles relievers combined to allow 4 runs, 2 earned in 6 2/3 innings. Rico Garcia faced 4 batters and got 3 outs. Did issue a walk, but he made it so that he is not allowed a run or a hit over his first 11 appearances in this regular season, extending his franchise record for most consecutive appearances by a pitcher to begin a regular season without allowing a run or a hit. Ryan Helsley came up big. He tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts. Cameron Foster in the bottom of the 12th allowed 3 runs, 2 earned. A wild game, but a wild win for the O's, who right now need every win they can get. Game 2 for the O's at the Royals Tuesday night at 7:40. The O's list Shane Baz as their probable starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Wednesday's show, episode 1308, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are home to the Atlanta Braves Tuesday evening at 6:45 for Game 2 of a 4-game series. The O's are at the Kansas City Royals Tuesday night at 7:40 for Game 2 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Sonny Styles is going 7 to Washington if he's on the board. And I actually believe that's if Jeremiah Love were on the board too. That's what I'm hearing. Strong.
Okay.
Strong.